Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and I'm in a classroom. My roommate is in my room, so I can't film a video there, and I can't go to the place I was at for my Hunter x Hunter and Unbreakable Machine Doll reviews because there's a movie being played in the auditorium, and I was in the film booth. So I'm in a classroom, and this is my double review for Strike the Blood, episodes 1 and 2. Now, I was thinking about playing Pokemon Y in the middle of this review, since my Snorlax is kind of beating up on Pokemon right now. But I'll keep it to the side, and just talk about Strike the Blood. It starts off with all these random people, and there are just these rumors about the fourth progenitor and how he has, the 12 calamities and like all these different abilities, kind of like Campion, if you saw the anime Campion a couple of seasons back. But it ends with this one boy telling his girlfriend, I guess, about the rumors, and she's like, "Oh, why you believe that, or is that it?" All this stuff. Her sandal breaks, she trips, blah blah blah. Pretty much, Akatsuki Kojo, or is it Kojo Akatsuki? He's the main character. He walks by them, he sees her neck, and then he gets this strong urge to bite her neck and suck her blood, and and his nose starts to bleed. Now, usually you would see that and think, cliche pervert, but I didn't really think that in this situation. He's a vampire, and even though I didn't know that at the time, I mean, the rumors that he shows up right after, you can assume that, but even though I didn't know it at the time, the way it happened, it just looked like he had an urge to suck her blood, and that his not following through with that urge is what caused his nose to bleed. And then later on, he mentions that his blood is kind of enough to stop the urge, so it's kind of confirmed. So he's not just your typical pervert. So, but after that, he's studying at this Denny's. It's Benny's, but it's really Denny's. He's there with this girl. I believe her name is Asagi. And then there's this guy there as well. I forgot his name. But he's studying there. They leave. He leaves. He ends up walking home because he doesn't have enough money for the monorail. And he's being followed by this girl. And he notices it because she's not very good at following people. And he hides in this arcade. And then he bumps into her on purpose. And she's like, "Oh, fourth progenitor." And he's like, wait, are you really saying the name fourth progenitor out loud with all these people around? But he didn't say that out loud, but it was clear from his face that's what he was thinking, because she was being stupid. But pretty much he pretends to be Italian. So it's like, "Oh, ciao, arrivederci," and all this stuff. And he walks away and tells her that she has the wrong person. As he's walking away, these two guys start hitting on the girl, which is kind of creepy since she's in middle school. But and he Kojo says that too. But pretty much she ends up starting a fight with them because they see her panties. It turns out that she's a sword shaman, and the one guy transforms into a Therianthrope. Don't really know how to pronounce it, but the other guy is a vampire, and he summons a familiar. The girl takes out the Therianthrope, or Terianthrope, but and then she takes out the familiar afterwards, and she's about to go and kill the vampire, but then Kojo comes back and stops her, and tells the vampire guy to leave. Then he kind of like he tells the girl that even if what they were doing was wrong, you can't kill someone just because they saw your panties. Like, you can't. And then we get some like cliche scenes like, "Oh, did you see my panties? No. And then the wind blows, and that he can't deny it anymore. But pretty much after that, we find out that the girl dropped her wallet because she goes storming off. It turns out she's a ninth grader, which is middle school in Japan, but by American standards, it's high school. So it's still not acceptable that the guys were hitting on someone that much younger than them. But I guess it's okay for Kojo to be attracted to her now because she's technically in high school by our standards. But I guess she's only like 1 or 2 years younger than him. But she drops her wallet. He picks it up. We find out that her name is Himiragi Yukina. Um, then he starts walking. We learn about Itogami Island. That's the place they're at. It's some island far off the coast of Japan, and pretty much it's called the Demon District. There are all these creatures, these magical creatures and legendary creatures living there. You've got vampires, Therianthropes, mermaids and fairies and half demons and spirits and man-made life forms and all this crap. All these magical beings living on one island. And I'm assuming you have normal people living on there too, because Kojo says that he lived on the island before he turned into the fourth progenitor. So it's safe to assume that there are normal humans living there too. But especially since they have all those alerts going, saying, oh, danger, danger, magic levels are high in this area or something, run. Because if you're a magical being, the chance, unless you're like a mermaid or a weak fairy or something, the chances are you'd be able to defend yourself and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But who knows? You never know. But pretty much Kojo wants to return Himiragi's wallet to her, and he goes to school. Her homeroom teacher isn't there, so he leaves. He looks inside to see if he can find some type of information where she lives so that he can give her a wallet back. His nose begins to bleed again because he gets the urge to suck her blood after recalling her panties. Maybe that one was more perverted than vampirish, but Himiraki shows up and calls him a pervert. She tries to fight him to get her wallet back, but her stomach growls, so then they just go out to some burger place and get food. While they're there, the camera pans off of them and zooms in on the TV, and you see that there's this some news story about demon killings. So, at first I was thinking that that's got to be important for them to take attention away from the main characters. And then later on it turns out that, the Lolly girl, Astarte, and that exorcist guy with the really long name, they're the killers. Or at least that's what I'm assuming. I mean, technically, I'll get to it when I get to it. But Himiragi ends up telling Kojo about the Lion King organization. Make all the Simba references now. She says it's like the Secret Service and it prevents large-scale disasters. And since Kojo is the fourth progenitor, he is a giant disaster waiting to happen, pretty much. So, she says that the progenitors are an entire military force on their own and they're huge threats. And that, Kojo tells her that he wasn't originally the fourth progenitor. He just turned into the fourth progenitor a few months ago. Before that, he was a normal human, and she finds it hard to believe because in order for that to be true, he would have had to obtain immortality by devouring the previous fourth progenitor. And pretty much we learn that the fourth progenitor chose him as her successor. I'm assuming it's a girl, and that the person we see at the end of the episode is in fact the fourth progenitor. But also, the fourth progenitor's nickname is Khaled Blood. Because all the progenitors have nicknames, and then the fourth is Khaled Blood. But Himiragi tells Kojo that if she deems him dangerous, it's her mission to kill him and make sure that he doesn't mess with the stability that the world has right now. After that, we get a glimpse into his past. It's a bunch of stuff like that girl. She mentions that she fulfilled a wish of his. We see like a young Kojo. I believe he was like coming out of some cryogenic chamber, like he was frozen in time or something like that, and like the chamber opened up and he just sat up or something. I really don't know what to think about it. I want more information on that, but The point is that Kojo had an interesting past, waking up in that little chamber thing, and then meeting with the fourth progenitor. She disintegrates after fulfilling a wish of his, and he becomes the next Khalid Blood. And we have the opening at the end, and then after that we meet the blue-haired Lolly and that blonde exorcist guy. And at this point, I was thinking that they're approaching those two, the Therianthrope and the vampire from earlier, the ones that were hitting on Himeragi, and they approach them, and you're kind of getting death flags are starting to pop up at this point, and it's safe to assume that they are in fact the the demon killers. But that's pretty much it for episode one. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. The series seems like it'll be more character driven than story driven, because even though Kojo has an interesting past, it's still driven mostly by the characters and not the plot itself. Because there really isn't a real legitimate plot yet. Like, we know about the progenitors, but there aren't any goals in the series or anything. Like, Himeragi's goal is just to watch him. Kojo's goal is to stay alive and enjoy life. Like, there's nothing really. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but not like long-term stuff. It's just the characters and their occupations that's going on. So it seems like it's going to be mostly character-driven, and I have a feeling I'm going to like most of the characters just from the opening itself. We see a glimpse of a bunch of different characters: Astarte, Asagi, this white-haired girl. We see Kojo's sister, some girl with a bow and arrow, some blonde guy. Like, there are a lot of different characters, and they all look like they'll be interesting. So I have a feeling I'm going to end up really liking this anime, even though I'm only giving the first episode a 7 out of 10. But it's just that it kind of starts off slow. I mean, there's not much to say about the episode to make it good. It's just, it starts off really slow. Oh my god, I want to suck that girl's blood. Oh, look, panties. No, I want to suck her blood. But the second episode shows more promise. We start off with a flashback of Himeragi meeting with the 3 saints of the Lion King organization, and they're telling her mission. They say that the 4th progenitor is the strongest vampire, so that might mean that the other 3 progenitors are not vampires, but some other forms of magical beings. Or maybe they are vampires and the 4th progenitor is stronger than them all. Maybe that's why he's such a big threat. But I'm hoping that each progenitor is a different type of magical being, just so that we can get some variety and see some different fighting styles and everything. That would make the fights more interesting. But we find out that the Sacred Treaty, the one that allows vampires and other magical beings to live together with other humans, it was written up by the other 3 progenitors. The first one is Lost Warlord of Europe, the second is Foregazer of West Asia, and the third is Chaos Bride of the Americas. They seem like interesting characters from their nicknames alone, but it'll be interesting to actually meet them. Then, obviously, the 4th progenitor is Khalid Blood, and they think that the 4th progenitor is going to disrupt the balance that was created by the Sacred Treaty. Therefore, they're telling Himeragi to watch Kojo and just eliminate him if she deems him a threat. After the flashback, I mean, it's more okay stuff. Himeragi moves in next to Kojo. They decide to go shopping so that she can get stuff for her room. After that, there's actually an interesting moment where Kojo goes to Natsuki Minamiya. She is apparently 26. She's a lolly, but apparently she's 26. Kind of like the pink-haired teacher from Index and Railgun, though she's mostly in Index. I guess Japan has this thing for lollies that are actually older than they appear. Maybe that. Never mind. I'm getting off on a tangent. But we learn about Natsuki Minamiya. She's an attack mage. She's one of the few people that knows that Kojo is the fourth progenitor, and there's actually a scene she shows up in earlier in the episode where she's investigating the scene of one of the demon killings. I believe it's the same exact bridge that Terry and Thorpe and the vampire on when Astarte and the blonde exorcist guy approached them at the end of episode 1. So that's probably the killing that they're referring to and investigating. But she was there investigating that. She's an attack mage, and apparently the Lion King organization are like their arch rivals, like their arch nemesis. Um, she tells Kojo that the Lion King organization is his enemy too, and that he shouldn't get involved with them. And right after that is when he goes shopping with Himiragi. Pretty much she thinks all these things are weapons when they're not, though a chainsaw can be used as one. Then after they get done shopping, Asagi sees them as she's on the train, so that's set up for something later on. We end up meeting Kojo's sister Nagisa. It's interesting that most Japanese girls would call their older brothers Oni-chan, but she actually calls her brother by name, so that's interesting. I at least call him like Kojo Ni-chan or Ni-san or whatever. Like I mean, I'm not exactly Japanese, but I would assume that calling your older sibling by name is kind of just shows that you don't have as much respect for them as you should. But who knows? Maybe it's just a thing that she does. Maybe it's just part of her personality. Who knows? But I just thought that was interesting that she calls Kojo by name. But or maybe it's possible that they aren't even blood related. That might be it. But pretty much Nagisa decides to throw a little welcoming party for Himiragi since she's moving in next door. Kojo's doing his homework and being helped by Himiragi because Himiragi's smarter than him. She has a high school education already, but she is only middle school aged, so she has to attend middle school. We hear about Kojo's past with his basketball team and how he got too cocky, and they kind of relate that to him becoming the fourth progenitor and how at first he was cocky as well, and he thought, I'll go and I'll become this hero and I'll stop crime and I'll do this and that. But he kind of learned from the past and realized that wasn't the thing to do, especially since the fourth progenitor isn't exactly some low level job. He's they make a point of saying that Kojo doesn't exactly realize the position that he's in, so maybe this was the start of him actually starting to realize it when he thought about his past and not actually becoming that hero. And of course, this happened in the past. Not that moment where he was telling Himiragi about it. In the past he realized that, but he doesn't really want to accept it. So even though he doesn't become that hero that he thought of at first, he still doesn't, he still tries to ignore the fact that he's the fourth progenitor and have a normal life, which is not possible anymore because now he's being watched by the Lion King organization. But what ends up happening is that after the welcoming party that they have, Kojo decides to go to the convenience store. And seeing as though Himiragi is supposed to be following him everywhere, she shows up in front of his door and she's soaking wet. She was in the bath, but she didn't dry off, so her hair is wet, her skin is still wet. Her clothes are all wet because she didn't dry off, and she put them on top of her wet body. So Kojo's like, okay, I'll wait for you, just go change. And his nose starts to bleed again, which is, I guess his vampire powers are linked to how the level of his arousal. But, so I guess he is technically still a pervert. I'm trying to help him out, but it's not going too well. But they end up going to the convenience store. They stop by this crane game. They're out past curfew and they end up getting caught by Natsuki. Then there's this explosion. Someone summons this firebird progenitor. Wow. Someone summons this firebird familiar. And Kojo and Himiragi decide to use that chance to escape from Natsuki. Then Himeraki separates from Kojo and decides to go after the person who summoned the familiar. Kojo wants to go with her, but she tells him, no, you can't. You're the fourth progenitor. You can't make any moves or else that will have some serious consequences. So she goes off on her own. I don't know what Natsuki is doing all this time. I really don't know. She should have been there before Himeragi, at least. But, especially by the end of the episode, she should have showed up. But, pretty much, Himeragi ends up showing up at the scene. There's this guy, I guess he's a vampire, or he's some type of magical being. And, he's the one that summoned the Firebird familiar, but she's going to fight him, but the guy ends up being killed by the exorcist guy. It turns out that his name is Combat Deacon Rudolph Eustache of Lotharingia? Lotharingia or something like that. He's an exorcist from the West European Church. So already, like I said before, there are a lot of good characters, and there are a lot of different factions and a lot of different powers involved already. We have the progenitors, we have the Lion King organization, we have the whatever organization that Natsuki works for. Now we have the West European Church, so there might be other churches involved. This might be like Index, where there are a bunch of different churches, along with all these other groups as well. Plus we have all the magical beings, like the vampires and the Therianthropes and half-demons and spirits and all that. And we don't know if there are other groups among them, which there probably are. So already we have a lot of different factions, so that makes for an interesting developments in the future. So even if there's no real telling where the story is going right now, it shows a lot of potential. But anyway, Rudolph Eustache ends up fighting with Himeragi. She has the Type 7 Demon Assault Lance. I don't remember its full name. It has like two different names. Both start with S's. I'll just call it a lance, her weapon. She's fighting him with that. Then Astarte shows up, the blue-haired lolly. And she has these hands growing out of her back and everything. Kind of like... She pretty much looks like this guy right here. But, she's got the hands growing out of her back, and she starts fighting with Himeragi too. And it gets to this point where Himeragi's about to die, pretty much. She blocks one hand, but she can't block the other one. She starts thinking about how Kojo would feel if she died, which I don't know why. They're not that close yet. It seems like they're trying to skip a few steps and move a little too fast, but whatever. Kojo ends up showing up and saving her. And, Astarte, he knocks out Astarte, but not knocks out, but he knocks her away. She gets back up and attacks him. She hits him, and she spills a bunch of his blood, but then that blood hits Kojo, and that ends up activating his powers. So I guess there really was truth to what he said earlier about how his blood can satisfy his urge to suck someone else's blood. Like, that'll calm his vampire self down. His blood obviously has some effect with his body and how it works. Obviously, blood is... you know what I mean. But, his blood involves his powers and his vampire reactions and instincts and all that stuff. So he gets hit with a bunch of his own blood, his powers activate and go out of control, and that's how the episode ends. I'll actually give this episode like a 7.5 out of 10. The ending was really awesome, and it was good good that we got introduced to Natsuki. Asagi had a little cameo in the episode. But we still had like half the episode was just, oh, I'm going to the store, I'm going shopping, I'm having a party for you, yeah, let's go to a convenience store, let's play a crane game, So that stuff was just okay, and it kind of lowers the overall grade a little bit and brings it down. But I'll give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. If you want to, you can round it up to an 8. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, this episode is 7.5 out of 10. I'm really liking this series so far. It has a lot of potential, especially with the characters. I have a feeling I'm really going to like the characters. It has a lot of long-term potential in terms of story, like I said before, with all the different factions and groups and powers and everything. So, yeah, I'm really liking the series so far, and I'm looking forward to what happens in the future. I don't know how many episodes it's gonna have, but hopefully it's a two-core anime and it gets 24 to 26. I'd even be happy with 22, to be honest. But if it ends up getting 12 or 13, so be it. But yeah, I'm gonna be reviewing this weekly as well. Um, the Kuroko review may or may not be up tonight. I really don't know. I really don't know because I haven't been able to study that much for my psych exam because of my project that's also on Tuesday that I've been working on, and I still have to continue working on that. So I really don't know if the Kuroko review is going to be up tonight or not, but I might be able to get it out. But that's it for now, and I'll see you guys later.